So this album was actually put to me like Walkz, you know, this guy.
Hey, what's good, people? Them, it's the Drill Simon Cowell. Go by the name of Walkz.
But it's interesting because I feel like Shocka is someone I've known quite a long time as a part of the Marvel Collective. But when he showed this to me, he said, when you listen to it, think of it with a blank slate because his music is a lot different to when you'd probably heard from him before. And I do like the change. I like how Shocka can write conceptually and has a clear idea of what he wants to say to you. And I'm really hoping he doesn't go Joyner Lucas on us. Please don't go Joyner Lucas on us.
Likkledotz on the beat. It's Likkledotz OTB.
Before I go into this album, make sure you like and subscribe if you like any of the other content that I might do. If this review is going to be a bit more serious and this isn't in your music taste, please take a look at any of the other stuff. They're all in a playlist for reviews, just anything else that might take your fancy. Move on to the album itself. I like how Shocka had a very clear concept that he was going for with the entire project, and the song concepts for the most part feed back into this concept that he had for the project. It's very much in the title, impact over numbers, which very much is well introduced through the skit that's used from the Burna Boy interview, the one that a lot of people have heard, where Burna Boy is talking about why do we value numbers over impact and how many lives you can touch, for example. That's a quote from Burna Boy in this skit. And Shocka kind of takes that principle and applies it to the entire album. So he cares more about getting across what he wants to say, talking about specific topics, tackling specific issues with his music, and trying to impact people's lives, rather than can a song be turned into a cool TikTok that can be used to rack up millions of streams so your song can go silver or gold. I feel like he prioritizes one over the other and funnels that through the entire album and sticks with this principle as he goes through everything. I found that Shocka is a very good storyteller when it comes to a lot of the rap songs on this thing. Now, in terms of storytelling with rap, I feel like this can be very difficult, simply because you can care about the narrative and the story that you want to get across and then forget that it is a rap song. You still need to remember flows and actual punchlines, lyricism, rhyming schemes, etc., and still make sure it functions as a rap song. And sometimes you can flex into spoken word, and I feel like that can be a bit of a cheat at times. But even when Shocka does flex into spoken word, I feel it still works. I feel like he's still rapping. It's just that what he's rapping has a story behind it that he wants to express to you. And I feel like Shocka doesn't fall into the usual trap of people when they're trying to tell a story with a rap song usually fall into. And don't get it twisted, that is very difficult. And the fact that Shocka can master this, he should get a lot of credit for. Vent Part 2, I feel like very much embraces this idea, especially with the idea of telling a story with his rap songs, but also embracing the principle of what the entire album in terms of its concept is about. He kind of goes into a few different things with Vent, but it's more about how he just wants to express everything he has on his chest. Talking about how beautiful he feels impact can be, and talking about how he once gave a TED talk and he felt that it was great to see what stemmed from it. Also talking about his feelings about the tragic passing of his mother and how his relationship with his mother was always pretty good at times and he really valued her and that sort of a thing. And I feel like Vent is very interesting and it really pummels into all those sort of things. But I feel like from the very beginning, this stuff it's deep in the feels. Like it really hits you straight in the feels. So like you kind of need to brace yourself when you kind of go into it because it starts pretty heavy. For a Reason is another one that I feel is like this, and I think this is really interesting, and it uses the kind of storytelling element, but it also encompasses some pretty good songwriting. I like the idea behind it, so it's basically talking about how his wife unfortunately had a miscarriage, and it talks it from both of their perspectives. So you've got the first verse in between the hook either side, which is essentially talking from his wife's point of view about everything that happened, and then a hook or a little break or a bridge, and then you've got his verse which is talking about it from his perspective, essentially trying to console his wife and stop getting his wife to kind of beat herself up over what happened, that it's not necessarily her fault, things kind of happen for a reason. And it also brings into compass and into play both of their beliefs with God and their relationship with Christianity, as well as their relationship and their marriage to each other. So I do think this is quite a beautiful song, if anything. I do like like the sentiments behind it, and I do feel like it encompasses everything in terms of the project and the concept behind it, as well as a very interesting song concept and some good songwriting. Fake Friend is more of a self-conscious one. I do like the idea because it's kind of a breath of fresh air in what people call conscious rap. I say that with inverted commas because what the fuck even is that? But even so, I feel like a trope in conscious rap is that usually how a lot of it goes is that you get one guy who sits on his moral high ground and then kind of preaches to you and then basically says you're all shit because you do X, Y, and Z. And that stuff doesn't really make for good music and people don't really like listening to that. But I feel like that's not what Shocka does on this tape for the most part. And this song is a lot more self-conscious in talking about things that he felt in life he could have done better. For example, when he talks about the tragic passing of Double S's father or one of his parents, he didn't attend the funeral because he feels like he's a self-absorbed person and that he was a bad friend, and that's what the song is about. And yet again, I do think it fits in with the entire project in terms of being more retrospective and wanting to cover certain things that he feels has impact on his life, and then telling you about them will have impact on you as a person as well. I feel like this is one of my favorite beats on this thing. I feel like the instrumental is actually pretty cool and having a lot of the blues vibes. It's like a lo-fi rap beat. I feel like that trumpet is an interesting idea. I feel like maybe it didn't quite work as well in terms of the tone of the entire thing. I think just literally having it either playing around with it in a different pitch or a different octave, maybe it would have worked a bit better, or maybe adding some sort of distortion sound effect on the trumpet because it feels a bit pure from kind of the distorted keys that you've got on this lo-fi beat. But in general, I do like this beat and I feel like it's one of my favorite ones on here. Well, some of the other songs on here, he just wants to talk about something in particular, a topic that's kind of grinding his gears and something he wants to get out, or just a general discussion point that he wanted to get across to you while still embracing the principle of the album and the project concept. However, on these tracks, I feel like he just picked instrumentals that would kind of suit the tone of what he's putting across to you, and I don't feel like he built instrumentals for the project itself, but I feel like that's okay because I don't feel like that's kind of what's important here and what he's trying to build from. But I feel like there could have been a bit more innovation from that part. But I don't feel like there's very many songs on here where the tone is completely off from what he's trying to say, that it just completely distracts you. I feel like he gets that right for most of the songs on this thing. Insecurities has a good idea, but that hook, it just feels really corny to me. However, what the hook does accomplish is that it gets the idea of the song to you and the song concept. Straight away, it's very clear what the song is about. Basically about male masculinity and toxic masculinity and kind of the insecurities people have and the need to kind of flex on people and everyone around them. And he makes some interesting points in the form of punchlines that really hit home and get across this idea. And yet again, he really kind of is going for the impact of a numbers thing because he's not really stressing over how hip it sounds. He lets it sound a bit corny, even though it doesn't necessarily resonate with me as much. It's more the idea that he's trying to get across to you and the impact it may have upon people listening to it that's more important to him. One line that stands out to me is flexing on people a black people thing, or is this something that everyone in this world does? I do really like that punchline. I feel like it's got a lot of things to it because I feel like there's a lot of things that people attribute to being a black people thing. But when you actually think about it in broader detail, this is just something that all human beings do and are bad at. So I really do like that sentiment behind it. It just had a personal spot with me. And I think it really personally resonated with me, that particular point. So impact, yeah, it's working. It's working. It's definitely working. Good Fathers is one of those songs where it delivers exactly what it says on the tin. The track is called Good Fathers, and the song obviously is about good fathers, and that good fathers do exist, and not everyone has daddy issues, and we should stop saying that all fathers are crap, because there's great fathers out there. And that's literally the song. Yet again, I don't necessarily feel like the instrumental is built for the song. I don't feel like there's much innovation there in that sense. But I do feel like the tone of the instrumental reflects what he wants to say. It doesn't distract you. It allows you to concentrate on what he's saying because that is what's important. Running, however, you had to go a bit Joyner Lucas on us, didn't you?
I told you not to do that! I told you not to do that! I told you not to do that! I told you not to do that!
Only a bit. I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't terrible. But it felt pretty Joyner Lucas. I can't lie. I feel like conceptually it's all over the place in terms of the stuff he's actually saying. He jumps around ideas so much, and I feel like the way he conveys his feelings in terms of what he wants to say, it's kind of in these kind of silly little cliche platitudes that don't really mean very much, and it just sounds really corny, but the point that he's trying to get across, he doesn't really get it across that well. But I feel like what he doesn't do, he doesn't go full Joyner Lucas, like where he decides, you know what, I'm going to do the lyrical miracle shit and just rap stupidly fast and hope you don't notice that I'm not actually saying anything of value. At least he doesn't do that, which I'm like, phew, you didn't go full Joyner Lucas on us, so that's cool. Like, I'm not going to go and say something stupid like saying that Shocka is a simp, because that's just dumb. But I would say that some of the sentiments behind this could have just been put better. In terms of, like, treating girls like royalty, I feel like that line is just so cliche. Find a better way to say what you mean. Because when you put stuff across like that, it just makes people's brains switch off and it just puts people off. There are other lines dotted around across this thing that do similar things. Like, kind of, this is why I made this song to empower you. It's like, I don't know, it's like you're fishing for bait. It's like, I don't know. I'm very sure, because of how sincere the rest of this album is, this was not your name at all. I feel like Shocka just isn't the type of person to do that. I just think the way he put things wasn't great on this song. And it kind of muddles up the kind of song concept that he's going for. You kind of get the idea in places, the idea that a lot of people ended up in very toxic relationships. And I feel like that is the angle he's going for. And people kind of run away from relationships that are actually good for them towards relationships that are bad for them. This is a sentiment I can get behind, but he just needed to put it better. And I feel like in this song, he doesn't put it together well. And I feel like this is the only song where this happens. The album ends on a better note for me. The testimony to Cadet is really nice, as a prime example of someone in the UK who probably valued impact over numbers, just like he is with this entire album, and someone who was respected because he valued impact over numbers and impacted a lot of people's lives through his music. And I feel like that was a nice touch. And the last song, which is entitled Impact Over Numbers, it just re-solidifies what the entire concept is about and the project concept, and kind of whittles down all the song concepts and gives them all a purpose and really sends home the idea of what the entire tape is. So, for my overall comments and what my grade for this overall is going to be, I'm going to give this a B-. I think there's a lot of tracks on here that I'm going to be listening to for a while. I think Fake Friend is a really interesting song, and it's very retrospective, but very self-conscious at the same time. And I feel like there's a lot of really good songs like that that are put together quite well, like conceptually in terms of the songs. But I feel like if you go into this kind of hoping for kind of like punchlines that he just spins your favorite rapper out of his head, and you're waiting for that word, but you're like, oh my god, he spazzed, you're not going to get that on this tape, because that's not the point. That's not what he's trying to do. And I do respect what he's trying to do, and I do like it in quite a lot of places. But I do think there's that one song where I just think it's so all over the place, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, I hate it. And kind of how the song concept just gets lost in all the kind of cliche platitudes that he kind of exaggerates and kind of acts like they mean something when they don't really mean much, and it just comes across as really corny. I didn't like it. But he doesn't go full Joyner Lucas on us for the entire thing, or very much of it at all, because there's only one track where I felt like he did that. But I feel like I like how well this album is put together conceptually, and I like how he had an idea that he wanted to put out there to everybody, and that's exactly what he did. And I also like how much focus he had with this entire project from front to end. However, I do feel like some of the production could have been a bit more innovative. I just feel like he picks instrumentals that he thinks would just fit the tone of what he's trying to say, but for the most part, I think he does that really well. Well, you've got to the end of the video. Thank you for watching the entire way through. In terms of reviews, I have so much more coming. I have a huge list of stuff I want to get to, and it's going to be a bit more of the alternative vibe. It's going to be a lot more artists that aren't quite in the mainstream as much, that I do think people should be listening to. And in a way, there's quite a lot of really good music out. So please subscribe and like the video if you like anything like that, or that sounds good to you at all. I'm going to be varying a lot of genres as well. There's going to be some straight up R&B artists coming up in the next couple of reviews, and I really hope you guys enjoy it.